Olá, boa tarde a todos. Obrigada os que estão já conosco para este nosso webinar Celebrating STEAM and STEM com a Sarah Smith do Brand Council do Reino Unido. Agradecer a vossa presença. A Direção-Geral do Livro, Arquivos e Bibliotecas mantém este objetivo de desafiar a Rede Nacional de Bibliotecas Públicas para continuarem aqui numa trajetória de inovação com alguns temas que podem ser propostos e levados a cabo pelas bibliotecas públicas portuguesas. E neste sentido, o nosso webinar hoje foi também para trazer-vos aqui assim um tema de uma proposta de trabalho através do exemplo das bibliotecas no Reino Unido, de como é que conseguimos alcançar públicos diferenciados na nossa comunidade, públicos multiculturais até, em certas zonas da cidade que podem ser zonas de carências socioeconómicas e de situações mais frágeis nesse sentido, e desafiarmos os públicos para virem à biblioteca fazer ações direcionadas para estes temas. Portanto, os temas de ciência, tecnologia, engenharia, matemática, mas também aqui com o aporte daquilo que são as artes, para que todos estes temas possam ser trabalhados de uma forma mais fácil e ágil, quer pelos bibliotecários, quer diretamente com as comunidades e com os públicos. A Direção-Geral mantém este objetivo de trazer para as bibliotecas públicas outros focos de possíveis projetos e iniciativas, portanto, e é neste sentido que desenvolvemos também o webinar de hoje. Mantivemos aqui assim um contacto direto com a Libraries Connected para tentar perceber no Reino Unido quem é que nos poderia ajudar nesta tarefa, e tivemos a Sarah Smith como recomendação para a nossa sessão de hoje, para podermos também, através deste exemplo, perceber um bocadinho que ideias é que podem ser colocadas em cima da mesa para depois tentarmos considerar se elas podem ser colocadas em prática ou não nas bibliotecas em Portugal. Portanto, apresentando a Sarah, que hoje está connosco, a Sarah é gestora para o desenvolvimento de bibliotecas da Brand Council no Reino Unido, tem trabalhado na defesa da diversidade na literatura infantil e também como júri na revisão de livros no âmbito de laboratórios de leitura para e com a empatia. A Sara trabalha ativamente na programação cultural e na procura de parcerias e investimentos para festivais anuais que envolvam as várias artes e juntem também os vários públicos. Ela é defensora apaixonada do papel das bibliotecas no desenvolvimento de programas na área da ciência, da tecnologia, engenharia e matemática. Daí também o nosso convite para que ela pudesse estar hoje conosco. Em 2020, a Sara foi reconhecida pelos seus serviços prestados às bibliotecas públicas no Reino Unido e também como alguém que pertence às próximas gerações de profissionais que ajudam a conduzir o setor da Associação de Biblioteca e Informação para uma nova era. A proposta de apresentação da Sara para esta nossa sessão será levar-nos numa viagem sobre a forma como tem sido planeada esta ação STEM e STEAM para adultos em Brent, portanto um bairro londrino com grande diversidade cultural. A Sara explanará os desafios e as oportunidades no desenvolvimento de projetos multiculturais com o público adulto e de várias origens e locais. Portanto, a sessão será em inglês, vamos tentando fazer aqui assim alguma tradução, mas vamos também deixar a Sara fazer a sua apresentação e no final colocaremos certamente aqui assim as nossas questões. So, Sarah, I just made your presentation in Portuguese. It's very nice to have you here with us today and learn a little bit about what the way you reach your community and your publics with STEAM and STEM in specifically where you work on in Brent Libraries. So thank you very much, Sarah. Let's enjoy the journey with your example, please.
Thank you so much, Sandra, for inviting me. And I do have a confession. I always think of myself as an arts girl through and through. I never think of myself as a person of science at all. So I always feel a little bit like a fraud when I'm talking about STEM and STEAM, but I guess there must be something in me that also enjoys working in the science area. So there is hope for everyone, because if I'm an arts person through and through, but I'm still able to do some science, I'm sure you can too. So
Yeah.
join me on this journey.
Thank you, Sarah.
So I'm just going to get it working. We've had a few technical problems, so we were slightly sort of anxious, but here we go.
Mm-hmm.
So what this presentation is going to cover, I'm going to talk a little bit about Brent and our libraries service, and then I'll go on and I'll talk about themed programming with regard to STEM and STEAM delivery. I'll also talk to you about the challenges, because there's no such thing as perfection. We all have to grapple with challenges, but there is hope and there are good outcomes. And then I'll finally finish off with a few next steps. So just to talk a little bit about Brent then, economic inactivity is very high in Brent. It exceeds the national average. In our borough, we have one of the highest levels of poverty. Deprivation is very much part and parcel of Brent. So we have big sections of the borough where there is high deprivation, which affects educational performance and outcomes. English in Brent, roughly only just over 50% of the population have English as their first language. So it means that it's a very diverse borough. Because of that ethnic diversity, if you think about the breakdown, we have roughly about 19% who are white minority, whereas 65% of the population is Black and Asian or other minority. In terms of languages, over 149 languages are spoken, and 45% of our residents are born outside of the UK. I'd like just to mention here that we do have a significant Brazilian community in Brent. And of course, for them, their first language is Portuguese. So just a bit of interest for you should you choose to come and visit Brent. We also, in terms of thinking about migration, we have a significant Romanian population as well, because if we think about how Europe opened up, so we do have more recent communities living in Brent as well.
It's the same in Portugal. We have a lot of different communities and migrants that come to our country. So it's very important, your example, for us to think about how can we reach these other publics who doesn't talk Portuguese as their native language, and how our projects and initiatives can be a way to reach out to them and make them come inside the library. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just talking a little bit more about the library services in Brent, what we do have, and this applies to all libraries, public libraries across the whole country, we have what is called universal offers. So it means all library services tie into this. And the whole aim is to improve life skills and learning, health and well-being, and bringing communities together. Because as you've rightly said, Sandra, so many countries now, we are very much a kind of mashup. So we have so many different communities living together, and it's about how we bring that in terms of community cohesiveness together. So in terms of universal offers, and that means public libraries across the whole country, some of the things that we tie into are things such as National Libraries Week, we have Black History Month, we have South Asian Heritage Month, Refugee Week. We also very much have a tight focus on learning, literacy, and celebrating cultural activities. So this is very much about acknowledging the mixture of cultural community groups living in the country, and I say in the country, so not just Brent. In addition to our universal offers, and I've given you a link there so that you can see the whole list of themes that public libraries link into in terms of programming delivery for the whole year.
Well, let me just say about that link, Sarah. We have a presentation. We're going to put it in PDF. Can we give it to the participants, right?
Absolutely.
Ok,
Yes.
portanto vamos ter depois também acesso à participação da Sara, à apresentação da Sara para todos os participantes.
Thanks, Sandra. So in addition to our universal offers, and we tend to think of it a bit like a universal offers calendar, we also link into national reading programs. So when I say that, again, that means all public libraries link into this. So we run programming such as Reading Ahead, which is very much geared towards communities who have English as an additional language. So it's basic literacy. There's Reading Friends, and this is very much a mental health focus where it supports people who are lonely, who are living in isolation, and who are struggling with their mental health well-being. And also it includes people who are living with dementia as well, so that they can attend our event. So we try to be as supportive as possible. So that's the Reading Friends program. We also have Reading Well, which is very much about stock for different age groups. So for teenagers, for adults, we have stock collections which very much focus on different health problems and how we can support people. We used to take part in the Summer Reading Challenge, which is a reader development program for children aged 4 to 12. And 2 years ago, we got brave and decided to design our own reading challenge for the summer. So that's called Summer Fun Festival. And I'll just show you our What's On brochure. So we produce a brochure in Brent 3 times a year, and it's a list of all the wonderful programming that Brent offers for people of all ages. So our Summer Fun Festival, and Sandra, I will send you the link so that participants can see the program. We have a theme each year, and this year we've gone for a theme called T-Rex, Fabulous Medusa, Pegasus the Winged Horse, plus weird robotics. And we hope that means that we'll get children banging down our library doors to come in and take part in the challenge in the summer. And it means that when they go back to school in the autumn, they have not lost out in terms of literacy development.
Yes, it's a little bit difficult to choose between dinosaurs and weird robotics. So, but
yes, so that's why we did a mix up.
To find time to experience them all, right?
This is it. And so there's lots of activities and events happening in the libraries, in addition to the challenge of encouraging children to read 6 books for which they'll get a certificate and a badge at the end. Okay. We also have the Book Trust programming, and that's very much aimed at getting children started on their reading journey as soon as they pop out. So from under 1 right up to roughly about 5 before they then move on to the next program. And this is very much supporting children in the early years. In Brent, we have 6 libraries, and 2 of those are with gardens. And so the front cover, you saw the picture of one of our gardens. So tied into that, so in London, there are 33 boroughs, and Brent is one of those 33 London boroughs. And the objectives for the council, so Brent Council, under which Brent Libraries sits, 5 objectives: the best start in life. So that's very much focusing on children and the importance of supporting them. Thriving communities. So the importance of bringing communities together and improving the welfare and reducing deprivation. Healthier Brent. In Brent, in terms of health, so mental health, well-being, but not just that. So for instance, we have significant communities who are at risk in terms of high blood pressure, stroke, diabetes. Those are some of the things that affect a large sector of Brent. So because a lot of us come from Black and Asian backgrounds, we are more susceptible to high blood pressure, strokes, diabetes. And so there's a real drive to educate people from those backgrounds so that we can reduce the growth of ill health in those areas. Also, we have a very poor oral health record. So a lot of our children have very, very poor teeth. Parents need to be educated because they seem to think you don't need to worry about that first set of teeth that children have. And so they're fed on a lot of sugary foods and drinks, which often results in them having to have all their teeth removed. It's that bad. We are at the top of the league in terms of very poor dental oral health hygiene. So we're having to do a lot in terms of educating communities about the importance of oral health from a very early age.
Let me just make a quick note about what you are saying. You're a librarian, right, Sarah? You're not a nurse. So it's very important to Portuguese libraries to see how you reach the community through this strategic ways that the council has defined as the top of the list to help the community. So you look at this strategy and you define your program also through this strategy, right? Let me just make a quick note for Portuguese participants. Portanto, é muito importante esta questão, porque nós podemos, de facto, pensar, porque somos bibliotecários, não somos peritos em saúde, não somos peritos na questão ambiental, provavelmente será o que a Sarah falará de seguida. Mas, de facto, fazer esta ligação a esta estratégia do município, de qual é a estratégia definida, pensando nas dificuldades, nas fragilidades da população e depois definir programas de literacia, neste caso que a Sarah estava a explicar, literacia em saúde, para melhor poder ajudar a população também. Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome. So we have health visitors who come to our libraries, and when we run under fives story time and rhymes, they come along and they run a workshop which is all about promoting good oral health hygiene. So they'll use puppets like Maggie the Dragon and, you know, clean teeth and so on, and they will give out toothbrushes and toothpaste because, again, it sounds shocking, but there are a lot of children who don't have their own toothbrush. And so it's about sharing a toothbrush in the family. So things that we might take for granted, it's quite surprising when you learn how other families are coping. Okay, so prosperity and stability, that's another objective for Brent. And I mention that because we have a high level of unemployment and we need to improve in that area. So we run programs where people can come in and get help with putting together their CV, help in how to prepare for job interviews, but also we run learning classes. Again, I've mentioned English, so improving your English, but also we run IT classes so that people will feel more equipped when they're going for jobs, that they have the right skills. So that's just an example. And finally, there's a big drive for a cleaner, greener future. There's big pockets of Brent which are very urban, and it's important to really have a focus and invest in our green spaces, particularly in areas where it's very urban. We've then got to look at different ways to engage with the community and still get them out, because there are small spaces that you can cultivate in terms of a greener future, but it's also your lifestyle. So recycling, having much more awareness about the importance of living in a green society. So overall, Brent Libraries is committed to delivering services that support positive outcomes, and we want to remain current, up to date, inclusive, and have accessible services. So just briefly before I go on to adult STEM programming, I just wanted to mention that we started our STEM delivery with children, first of all, and roughly about 2017, we focused on the primary age group, 7 to 11 years, monthly, and I've mentioned about the importance of needing to raise our game in terms of improving outcomes for children academically. So by running after school STEM clubs, it was a way of supporting the learning that children would get in schools. The other thing is also to get parents to think outside of traditional jobs. So for instance, with our communities, a lot of parents would be thinking, oh, I want my child to be an engineer or a lawyer, a doctor, a dentist. There's not an awareness that there are lots of other jobs out there which embrace a STEM background. So by running an after school club, this is a way of updating parents. Important also to deliver these types of clubs in areas of deprivation. Plus also we have an organization called STEM Learning, and out of STEM Learning comes STEM ambassadors. So these are largely qualified people working in industry that come and give some of their time free and run classes to support children's learning. And you can see a few pictures here of what we did with children. So such things as build a torch, a brain hat, computer clock, learning about what happens under the sea, but also a cultural focus. So learning about unknown scientists. And we felt that was very important given the diversity in Brent. And that's a picture of Miranda Lowe, who is the principal curator for crustaceans at the Natural History Museum.
It's important to do this identification with the cultural side of the population, so they may feel that it's an opportunity also for them, right?
Absolutely. And I think it's about the different careers that are available out there. But what I think is also important, that children need to see themselves in terms of identity. So yeah, represented. So you find for our STEM ambassadors, most of them are coming from cultural backgrounds, ethnic cultural backgrounds, and that's very important so that children can see themselves and not just think that working in science is something that only people from European backgrounds do. But certainly, obviously, when I was much younger, that's what you would see on the TV. So it's really nice now to see much more of a mixture. Okay, so looking now, very much focused on STEAM and STEM adult programming in Brent, wanted to talk to you about our focus on gardening workshops. And this is a great way of bringing people together from different backgrounds. We identified, and I'll give you the list of the people that we've worked with at the end who have brought their expertise for delivering, but we really wanted to think about offering workshops that would interest people, bring them together, but also really thinking about the different aspects that could be offered. So for instance, looking at natural medicines for a spring boost. So for those people who are very much into natural health, we thought that this would be a good one to draw them in. We also wanted to, because we were thinking very much about a range of workshops. So then there is the focus on sustainable gardening. How do you keep it going, particularly if you're in a country like here where we do move to, there's a point when winter has to come and we have to embrace it. But how to keep going and working in smaller environments and using different types of equipment to keep plants growing.
So, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Desculpem os participantes que vão colocar as questões no fim. Sorry for the participants who are going to make their questions at the end, but
Yes.
Just a little bit a curiosity. So, is the librarian team, prepared to do these workshops? Do they know about gardening? Do they know about natural medicines? How can they
right.
do some research? How
So
does
what
it
we
happen?
do, right, so how it happens is we were introduced to a STEM ambassador, and his name is at the end of this production, this presentation. His name is Michael Holland, and he comes with a gardening background, and he's also written books as well, and he used to work in the gardening industry and has now gone freelance. So what we, because the thing is that you want to find somebody who's reasonably priced, because let's face it, none of us have loads of money. But what we did is we met with him and we sat down and we worked out a program. Plus, he came reasonably priced. So what happens is we get someone to deliver with support from library staff, so that the library staff are gaining skills all the time.
Okay.
And it means then that whilst we're not relying on them to be the first point of call for delivering, they support the person coming in to deliver. And if there's any equipment that needs to be got, because very often the program can be run doing a little bit like what I'm doing with you today, where we start off with a presentation. So you need to have your screen and so on, and everybody gathers around. But then the person brings their compost, their containers, and then it's a hands-on workshop. And that's really good because it ties in with, so we have a lot of people, because it's a coffee morning program, we have a lot of people who are available during the day. This is something nice for them to do. It's good for their mental health well-being. It supports that whole ethos around green neighborhoods, whether you have a garden or whether you're going to grow something on your window top. And also you learn about growing plants that can support your own cost of living. So for instance, growing herbs, you can grow tomatoes, things that you can do that don't require a lot of space. So it's having
it's good for the team, because the team has a learning process also.
Yes.
It's good for the patrons who work on these workshops and learn about sustainable gardening, how you do your compost, how you do your own gardening for something that's healthier for you, and also because they get together. There's a neighborhood connection between them all. They can have their coffee morning in the library, and get to know each other.
Yes,
Also.
yeah. And which is so true, because it's about community cohesiveness, because you can be, you bring a group of people together, but they're coming from different backgrounds, but you are united in this interest. And the beauty about this presentation is you can keep it, but it gives you ideas about what you can do in terms of running a gardening workshop. What you really want to do is just kind of sort of find out who's out there who has a bit of knowledge, and you will have on your doorstep. Okay, so this same person, Michael Holland, he delivered a whole series of workshops. So you can see where I've mentioned there, thrifty gardening. Who doesn't need thrifty gardening? I have a very small garden at home, 2 raised beds and a little bit of pavement in between, but I'm able to grow my herbs in plant pots. So chives, actually, chives, oregano, um, basil, and fennel. So not as many as in the picture here, but I have quite a few just outside my door. And in fact, I had to say to one of my colleagues just now that I could still taste the chives in my mouth. So could I have a mint? Because chives are so much like onions. But anyway, talking about sustainable gardening, if you have a look at that picture, you can also see where you don't have to go out and buy plant pots. There are other containers that you can use to grow food and plants in. So it doesn't have to be a costly exercise at all. And these are some good examples of how you can grow food. So other sessions that our workshop coordinator offered, gardening with mobility in mind. And that's so useful because, again, it's not taking for granted that everybody can get down on their haunches to dig and get the garden ready. I mean, I'm still able to get about and so on, but I do find that when I'm gardening, if I've been gardening for a good few hours, the next day I pay for it. So at the moment, I don't have any major problems, but what was really good about this workshop is that the workshop leader had thought about mobility, and for people suffering from arthritis, or you could be in a wheelchair. So just looking at practical techniques so that you too can enjoy gardening. Christmas, a festival that always most times brings people together, but this was quite a nice gardening celebration in terms of looking at craft and plants for Christmas. And I really loved the one around 12 plants of Christmas and the different warming spices that can be had from different herbs and the flavors. So this was a very much hands-on workshop, but also in terms of some of the practices where plants are involved as well. So again, lots of ideas here which can be shared with participants, which can bring a lot of pleasure. I mean, sometimes what I think is I'm involved in the preparation and discussions, but I never get a chance to take part at all. So I just kind of sort of think, oh, you lucky, lucky people. I've then got to move on to something else and, make other programming as exciting and engaging. I just wanted to point out to you where you can see the logo there, green neighborhoods. So that ties in with our council objective about greener spaces. So we always emphasize that. And again, as you mentioned, Sandra, it brings people together from different backgrounds. So a lot of that work was done at our library, Kilburn Library. I'm now going to move on to our Ealing Road Library. And this is very much in a urban environment, whereas Kilburn is in a very kind of comfortable background with lots of green spaces. This is much more of an urban area, Ealing Road Library. So you're surrounded by high-rise buildings so that children and families tend to look on the library as their backyard, that additional space where they can go because there are very limited green spaces. what you tend to find when you go to the library is you'll see all the men sitting out at the front having discussions and so on. And one of the things that I wanted to do was to really develop the garden at the back as a place for women and children. So, let the men carry on with their chatting and, world politics, you name it, out of the front.
But
But
that
let the
that would be
women,
a challenge to put the men also with the woman in the children in the gardening area.
yeah,
But in a multicultural
in a
way,
multicultural,
I
yeah,
believe it's a challenge. It's a big
yeah.
challenge to do. Yes.
It is because it's just that it felt like men had somewhere, even though it wasn't a garden, but it's where they would hang
Mhm.
out together and so on. And I used to kind of sort of think to myself, oh, the women need somewhere as well.
Yes,
So
they're
with
special.
Ealing,
Let me just make a
sure.
quick note for Portuguese
Hmm.
who are joining us in this
Yeah.
webinar. Ora, então a Sara tem estado aqui assim a fazer aqui assim uma abordagem sobre algumas vertentes de workshops mais virados para a questão da sustentabilidade, da agricultura biológica, do aproveitamento do espaço circundante da biblioteca para também poder juntar estas famílias multiculturais. E agora a pequena nota que ela deixava era que enquanto de facto os pais, portanto os pais os homens ficariam na entrada da biblioteca a discutir assuntos, as mães e as crianças ficariam mais nos bastidores, na parte da jardinagem, a aprender estas técnicas. E, de facto, numa vertente multicultural, era o que a Sara agora reforçava, que às vezes as próprias mães também precisam do seu momento e do seu espaço para poder, para poder estar. E aqui a biblioteca como espaço para estar também. Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks, Sandra. So if you look at this picture carefully, you can see in the corner where we've actually put up some netting to protect the raised beds. This is because I like squirrels, but at the end of the day, the squirrels come in and take all the seedlings and so on as such. So this was a way of protecting the raised beds so that we could enjoy the outcome later on. So this garden is much less developed in comparison to the garden that you would have seen at the beginning of my presentation. So they're on their journey. So as I said, the surrounding community is very urban, but the sessions that I run at this library are much more around family learning sessions, bringing families together, because what we found is when we tried to do it as coffee morning sessions with adults, we had very limited take up. So what we tend to find in the Ealing Road area is we have a very significant Asian community and they are very family focused. So they like doing things together and supporting the educational development of their children. So very sort of family focused approach. So we see the garden here as one that's a community garden for all ages. It's about improving the mental health well-being and also targeting local refugee communities. Ealing Road is near our Wembley Stadium, and we have a lot of refugees living in the local area. And if one can think about, for many of those refugees, they've had very traumatic journeys coming to this country, and many of them are housed in selected hotels, and they have to wait years sometimes before they get an update on what their future will look like. So you can have refugees living in a hotel for 6 and 7 years and waiting for an outcome. The ones that are most, I suppose, at threat are adults, single adults, because if they are allowed to stay, they then have to leave the hotel within a week. And that often leads to homelessness as well. So if you think about living in a hotel and the uncertainty, so you've braved perhaps coming over by water on flimsy rafts, and you've finally got here from a country which has not been great in terms of supporting you. And the relief is to a certain extent short, because then you have to live in a hotel and still unsure about whether you'll get a stay. So we see the gardens as a refuge as well, where people can go and get involved or just be. We want to encourage the garden to be sustainable. So we are hoping, as the garden develops, that we will attract local volunteers. One of our ideas is to have an ongoing photo exhibition which will show the development of the garden. And through that interest, we hope will bring a more cohesive community involvement. We want to grow a mixture of flora, fauna, and edible plants. And we are halfway through completing a funding application, because these things require money, and it's a detailed funding application. So I'm working with a partner on that. And any of you who've had any experience of writing funding applications know that it's not an overnight thing. It takes much longer. So family learning gardening workshops. So we've tried to kind of mix it up with fun. So we started early this year with a beginner's gardening workshop, and then went on to getting more involved in the growing, in terms of spring coming along. And spring always makes you feel hopeful, and that there's an opportunity for not only planting plants, but seeing things develop and grow. So there's a few pictures of our work there. So I've finished about gardening. I've spoken about coffee morning sessions at our Kilburn library, and then about family learning at our Ealing Road library. And now I want to kind of move on and talk about using STEAM in terms of celebrating cultural diversity. So each year we celebrate South Asian Heritage Month. I mentioned earlier that we have a significant Asian population in Brent, and so it's important for us to celebrate this time of the year. And as my presentation shows, you can see, in terms of South Asian heritage, where different people come from who have settled here. So what did we do? So in celebration of South Asian Heritage Month, again, might I say, we have managed to find a workshop leader for this. The great thing about this workshop leader, different to the gardening leader, but both reasonably priced, and I've put in their contact details at the end of this program. So you can see from the pictures here, we have done a focus on Indian wildlife art. And so not only do participants learn about wildlife in central India, but also how you can actually create a really interesting and different piece of artwork that influenced by the gong painting tradition. So I just love that picture. I mean, I'd love it for my own home, actually. I just think it's so colorful and vibrant. So that's the Gong tribal artist, but our leader also went on and did something different the following year, and this was a celebration of Sri Lankan temple flowers. And again, it's so beautiful, so beautiful. Yeah, Sri Lankan Buddhist art and the lotus flower. And
do you find these leaders within the community, or because sometimes in the communities we can find persons who are habilitated to do these workshops, and they function as a connection between the other people of the community. Are they in the community or they are
No,
outside?
they're outside the community but living in Brent,
Yeah.
and both of them are people of color as well. So one of them is coming from a mixed Asian background, and the other one is African American. And um, I'll tell you a little bit more about them at the end of the this presentation. So in terms of how we found them and got to know them.
Yes, because it's important to reach the community
Mm,
with this connection with some persons who
mm,
can develop these workshops, but they live in the same area. They
yes.
know
Yeah.
the rest of the community, and they are going to be able to bring those persons inside to the workshop and to the library also.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is that when you're living in London, London is such a in many ways, it's just a small part of England. So, for instance, you can live in one borough and you travel to another borough. So, for instance, I live in Enfield, which is North London, but Brent is actually Northwest London. It takes me about 90 minutes by train to get to Brent. So it's a bit different to living outside of London, where in terms of someone living in the community, it is perhaps more important. But if you live in London, you're so used to traveling around to different boroughs, it's a different approach for delivery. But what I tend to find is that I much prefer using people who are London based, because of the transport networks, it's just a lot easier than outside of London. Okay, so just a bit more about South Asian Heritage Month and some more examples. So one of the things that's quite nice is you can see from the examples that are placed there that the workshop leader has really celebrated different cultural practices from different parts of South, actually, I'm saying South Asia, but I think we have now, yes, sorry, we've moved on to East Asian Heritage Month. So now we're in East Asian Heritage Month. So for this, and I want to emphasize here the word East Asian, because a few years ago, we used to celebrate Chinese New Year, and then we were told that actually we needed to be more inclusive so that we no longer use the word Chinese New Year. We say East Asian New Year because it is made up of people from different East Asian backgrounds. And here you can see some examples. So you've got the Chinese Northern Song paintings, which is right at the bottom. So very different artwork to, for instance, Vietnamese silk painting, which is quite beautiful there. But then we move on to the Korean artist, and she uses ink drawings. So it's where there's a combination of learning about the symbolism, but then going on to create some artwork. Very therapeutic. We have a women's art group that meets in one of our libraries, and they're always keen to take part in this. But what we found is that the workshops have been extremely popular, regardless of which library it's been run in. You're learning something, but it's also so therapeutic as well. So we've looked at South Asian Heritage Month. We've looked at a celebration of East Asian Heritage Month. And I just wanted to sort of mention, because we also have a significant Black community in Brent, largely from Caribbean and African cultural backgrounds. So about 2 years ago, we celebrated the acclaimed artist, Althea McNeish, who was originally from Trinidad, and her influence was the plants that grow around you. So if you think about, for instance, in the Caribbean and the growing of cane and corn and the background to that, and she used that in terms of her creation of different textiles and was extremely successful, so that you had big clothing companies who took her up because they wanted to use the fabrics to create their own designs. And so we had a retrospective of her work at the William Morris Gallery. Some of you might be familiar with William Morris. He was known for his own beautiful textile artwork. My mother's a big fan. So when you look at some of his textiles, they're used for curtains and for furniture coverings. Beautiful. So yes, there's a retrospective of her work. The other person I wanted to mention was a Kenyan American artist, and her artwork is very different. So it's futuristic. It's called Afrofuturism, and you can see some of the pictures here. And any of you who are fans of Black Panther the movie, will see some similarities there. And I think that film was very much influenced by the work of this Kenyan American artist.
Sarah, let me ask you a question. Does the
Yeah.
community relates to the art, to this kind of art? I know it's a Black History Month, no? There's a cultural connection, but when we come to art movements and to art expression, maybe there's a disconnection. Oh, I don't want to go from there. What do you feel? Is there through art we can reach this kind of communities through art? It's a
I think
way. It's
so.
an easy way.
I think so, because so for instance, how you can do it, you can be a bit crafty and cunning, for want of a better word. So for instance, so the celebration of Althea McNeish and then Wangechi Mutu, we tied it in to Black History Month. And so there's added interest when you come to that part of the year to see that something is being delivered that ties into themes of Black history. And there's a sense of pride as well as curiosity. And I think particularly because these workshops are offered during the daytime, it's something different for local people to do, because you're not having to pay at all, but you're going to come along and do something that's a bit different. So it's that exposure as well. So I mean, if I was a local Brent person, I just love that variety that's available. I mean, not of all of, because I mean, I think art is very much an individual taste. And so not everything is going to appeal in the same way, but there's an interest and a curiosity. And so I think, if I use the example of Wangechi Mutu, the Black Panther movie was so popular. So I think that would draw in people and hopefully younger people. What we did do with both the celebrating Color is Mine, which is the Althea McNeish, which is over in the corner there, and then Wangechi Mutu, we also offered the workshops to invited school classes, and we got huge take up. There was a real interest in coming into the library to participate in those workshops. And the thing with the two STEM people that I've worked with is that their workshops are transferable, so that you can deliver them for invited school classes as well as for adults, kill two birds with one stone, so to speak. And you can also offer them as holiday activities as well.
Yes, yes. In Portugal, we work a lot with schools, also with schools and younger publics, but the adult publics are a challenge. So the curiosity how art can reach these adult publics, and as you were talking about the hour of the day, the people are available to do these workshops, is also important to see which hour are we going to do our workshops to the community, because community isn't free all day. They're working, there are their schedules. How can we identify the hour, the right hour to do this kind of workshops?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, over here, it's not warm enough to have a siesta. So we run ours at about 11,
We don't have siestas
11:30.
in Portugal.
No?
No,
Okay.
only in Spain. Only in Spain.
Only in Spain, right?
Yes.
So therefore, looking at 11 or 11:30 could be an option. You want to do it before the children get out of school, because you need the space in the library to be a bit quieter and more tranquil for delivering. Whereas, once school finishes and children come in, the whole atmosphere of a library changes. So we do think about timing, but also it's just nice to have coffee as well, coffee or tea with a nice biscuit.
Okay.
Yeah, so just a few more in terms of what we did for Black History Month. We did a focus, and this is where it brings in a sense of pride. The unseen scientists and courageous conservationists. And we ran those as workshops for invited school classes, but could also be used for adult programming as well. So I mentioned earlier about the unseen scientists, because I think many children probably still think of scientists as a white person in a white coat on with glasses, and what this session did was show that scientists come from many cultural backgrounds, and their commitment to things like a greener economy. So, when you think about the other session there, courageous conservationists, we are, and you do hear it on the news now, and I've heard interviews where you're interviewing conservationists from different African countries, where they're talking about the challenges and what needs to change. And it's very important for children to hear this, but I think in terms of adults, it's really the other message that you want to get out is improved awareness. And if you think about courageous conservationists, we all need to team up to do what we can to ensure that we have a future tomorrow. This is our world. This is the world that we live in. And it is not the job of just a few people. This is something that we all need to get on board with. So it was very informative. There was work to be done. So you learned where you could have fun in terms of using photo collage, drawing and painting, but also you were learning as well about the challenges. So finally, every year we celebrate National Libraries Week. And last year we did a focus on celebrating women in zoological art. And so we had one of our regulars come in and do a session on that, and very much focusing on women from the past and their achievements before creating their own personal artwork. And for us, we always celebrate National Libraries Week in October, and just raising the importance, because I'm not sure what it's like in Portugal, but we've had a number of libraries that have closed, and this is how National Libraries Week grew out. So it grew out from that need to highlight the importance of such a national organization that is free for people to use, and that it's available, it's part of the community, it's the hub of the community. And as we've developed over the years, it's the many different services that we offer. So yes, National Libraries Week, and that was our focus.
Yeah.
So
In Portugal, we have the National Day for the National Network of Libraries, and it's in March 11. So it's a day when we all celebrate and libraries celebrate being part of this national library with all those services, projects, reaching out to the communities you were talking about. Yes.
yeah. So just to kind of sort of say this, it's not always smooth sailing. So rest assured that Brent Libraries also has to grapple with challenges. So we do find that we have lower visitor figures in libraries where there's high levels of deprivation. We do find that with our coffee morning programming, which we advertise on Eventbrite, and Eventbrite is something we started to use during the pandemic. We can get high booking numbers, so you can get really excited, but it doesn't always translate into high attendance numbers. I've mentioned about having a large sector of the population who speak English as an additional language. We need more copies of this out in the community, because essentially visual publicity is so important, but this is also quite costly as well. There's only so many that we can produce. We'll never have enough to put out everywhere, and yet we are concerned that not enough people know about the offer in libraries. So that continues to be a challenge for us. How do you reach those people?
Do you make partners in the community, local associations when you reach out to these specific communities? Do you advertise your services through those associations? How do you do it?
We have partnership working. We also have a list of organizations where we will send publicity. We also send publicity to schools, to go in the schools' newsletters that go out to parents. We put up posters in shops as well, where we are allowed, and we do a lot of social media. So tweeting, or now it's moved to X. We have a online newsletter that goes out. So we do that. We have a Facebook page as well, and Instagram. So we try many different ways to try and reach. I still feel that, so in my posts probably about 6, 8 years ago, I decided that you really had to print posters very large. So if you think about when you pass a bus stop and the publicity on the bus stop, the poster is going to be huge. And one of the things I wanted to get out in libraries is that we needed to have large posters to get the attention of people, because if the posters are too small, people don't see them. And one of the problems with libraries, and Brent is no stranger to this, is that you go into a library and we want to tell people about the offer, but if you're not careful, what you're faced with is just clutter. You're faced with clutter because you've got publicity all around you.
All around
And
you.
so as a result, you see nothing at all. So that is a challenge for us, for how you make use of visual publicity, but getting the balance right. So, we accept that there are segments of the population in terms of our programming that are underrepresented. So I mentioned about the Brazilian community. So the Brazilian community in Brent, there's very little engagement with them. They kind of live very close to a local library. Whenever I'm at that particular library, I run across the road to get my coffee because Brazilian coffee is really nice, but don't get much engagement. So that is one of the challenges for us, even when we invested in book stock. So we have people, we've also got to think about people living with dementia because, you know, there's more and more awareness about that, and it depends where you are on that journey. We've got people living in poverty and who are vulnerable. I've mentioned about English as an additional language. We've got refugees and asylum seekers waiting for rehousing. Plus there are digital factors. So I mentioned to you about using social media, but one has also got to be aware that not everyone has access to smartphones or Wi-Fi. And also there is a segment of the population who are reluctant to learn. You know, it just seems like too much of a big thing. And I understand that because we all have areas where we just kind of sort of think, you know, this seems too much of a hurdle. So those are things that we are still grappling with and trying to sort out. Benefits, and this is our lovely garden in Kilburn. When I go there, if the weather is good, I love to sit there and have my lunch. I've mentioned community cohesiveness. It brings cultural communities together for a common interest. It ties in with our reading agencies, Reading Well program, in terms of supporting people who are lonely and isolated, and those who are at the beginning of living with dementia. The gardens provide relaxing spaces for people of all ages, and it supports health and well-being. They're therapeutic places, and they're just places to be. Or if you're living in a hotel waiting for a replacement, it's an alternative space to be. It encourages gardening, both indoors and out, offers solutions for the cost of living in terms of fruit and veg and herbs. And I mentioned earlier about council objectives. So it supports those in terms of thriving communities, healthier Brent, and a cleaner, greener Brent. So our next steps, funding applications. So I've mentioned that. You really do need time to think about that. And I don't know about you, Sandra, but I always feel as if my to-do list seems to get longer and longer, and you do need time for that. We'd like to have a summer garden festival. We'd also like to put on a flower and plant show, and also do more to promote STEM as alternative career options. So, you know, going into, we've talked about alternatives in moving away from traditional jobs, but also just even thinking about a gardening career, you know. And if you're thinking about people who've come to this country and are having to make changes, it's something to consider. So just to finish off then, so two wonderful people. So the gentleman is Michael Holland. I've put his contact details there. So with Michael, we've run a lot of gardening workshops, and he's been an absolute delight and reasonably priced. And for our STEAM focus, we've worked very closely with Daryl Stenville Wells. So that's Daryl there. And she's African American. So we have two different kind of sort of backgrounds in terms of what they bring to the table, but both of them are able to run workshops for different age groups, extremely creative. So you go to them and sort of say, you know, South Asian Heritage Month is coming up. Have you got any ideas? Don't have any ideas. What would you suggest? They're interesting. Daryl used to work with the Linnean Society, and that's very much focused on zoology. And she's now gone freelance, but I do need to acknowledge them because they brought a lot to our programming. And with the Linnean Society, we didn't have to pay at all. So it's worth exploring which organizations, Sandra, are available that can offer programming for free, and
Yes.
where they're keen to do partnership working with
Yes.
public libraries.
In Portugal, we insist a lot in the partnerships that are a way to public libraries to develop some projects easily, reaching out not only with some themes that are more easily to develop in the partnership, but also with the community. So that's essential, yes. Portanto, aqui a Sarah estava a falar da questão das parcerias, que existem possibilidades de parcerias gratuitas, é uma questão que nós temos insistido também bastante no seio das bibliotecas, porque de facto, quando olhamos para a comunidade e tentamos pensar com que associações é que podemos trabalhar, portanto, o workshop a sessão do webinar da Sarah foi mais na vertente da ciência relacionada aqui à questão da sustentabilidade também e desta vertente mais de jardinagem, de workshops que seriam possíveis, mas na comunidade existe um sem fim de possibilidades relacionadas com a vertente mais científica, que podem eventualmente ser explorados para que vocês também nas vossas bibliotecas possam desenvolver projetos diferenciadores. Sorry for this note in Portuguese, Sarah.
No,
Please
that's
continue.
okay. I'm just about at the end. I was just going to say STEM Learning UK. When I first started on my STEM journey, that's the organization that I went to, and they were the ones who supported me in setting up after school STEM learning clubs and put me in contact with STEM ambassadors. And I'm actually now a STEM ambassador myself. I always feel like, again, a bit of a fraud because I'm not coming with that science background, but what I do is I organize and put together and reach out for people who can deliver. So I have to say to myself, Sarah, you are indeed a STEM ambassador. And I think that's possibly it. I'll check.
Okay.
Yes, there we are. So I've come to the end of my presentation, and yes, just showing you Kilburn Library's garden from another angle. And if I time it right, I'm able to eat the plums and pears that grow in that garden.
Very, very nice, Sarah. Very nice. So it's time for questions, so we can make Sarah available for the rest of the day for work with our communities in the library. Vamos ver se têm questões que queiram colocar à Sara neste momento, podem perfeitamente colocar no chat. O chat está disponível, inicialmente não estava, mas neste momento já está. Portanto, se quiserem colocar as vossas questões, eu depois farei também a tradução para a Sara, se as quiserem colocar em português, por favor. So Sarah, when you reach the community with this advertising, when you establish these indicators with well-being and health, etc., do you report to your how do you say, to the politicians, to the executives of the council? Do you give note about these objectives that aren't related to promoting reading, because they are very directed to well-being and other aspects of library that aren't used to be acknowledged like that. So how do you do that part?
Okay, so one of the things is that we do need to demonstrate that we tie in with the council's objectives. And so if I just sort of highlight this program again, because in this brochure, you will see that most of our programming ties in with council objectives, because we can't just go out there and sort of think, oh, this looks nice, we'll do this, or, oh, so very, very much we have to tie in with council objectives and also to show that we have an understanding of the borough. So we know that cost of living is a big issue in Brent. And so therefore, doing programming that supports people economizing is extremely important. I've mentioned about the green economy and the importance of a green approach to living. And also we have a lot of ill health. So really, we have to, all our programming needs to reflect those council objectives. We collect attendance numbers because we need to show the attendance for these events. My budget isn't huge. I get about 10K for the year, and that's to be spread across all ages. So I have to look at partnership programming as well and funding applications. So that's why I mentioned about that. Funders will be interested if you tie in with issues that are important today. So that's how we work about it. I recently had to write an audience development strategy, and because the politicians were asking, how do you justify the different things that you do in the program? We need to see what you're doing and what are the challenges.
Claro, claro. Estávamos aqui a falar com a Sarah sobre de que forma é que se integram estas vertentes diferentes do trabalho em biblioteca que é possível para chegar às comunidades, às diferentes comunidades que também estão, que residem à volta das bibliotecas, mas que muitas vezes não estão na biblioteca, e basta também alinharmos a estratégia da biblioteca com aquilo que é a estratégia também do município nas suas várias vertentes, e essa é a maneira também de mostrarmos para os executivos que é possível as bibliotecas fazerem, de facto, projetos diferenciadores também noutras áreas. There are two notes of colleagues here in Portugal, from Silvia Fernandes, from Anadia. She gives you congratulations. So for your sharing in the multicultural way with all this inclusion version for libraries, for communities, and also Vicência Oliveira, the Biblioteca de Góis Library. Góis is another municipality here in Portugal. That's saying it was very nice to know all these ideas so that she can develop in the library also. Sarah, so I'm going to free your time now for the rest of the day. We have recorded our webinar. We are going to put the webinar online, so it's going to be available for everyone who wasn't free to participate today. We are in summertime, so a lot of people is already in vacations, and today is a very hot day here in Portugal. Many people are going to the beach, most certainly. Feliz Bela is also thanking you for your time. So, Sarah, thank you very much.
Thank you. My pleasure.
It was a wonderful sharing. So
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you for asking me. Happy gardening and other STEM and STEAM explorations.
Thank you.